Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, Dave, how's things going?
Not bad.
Yeah, so today's the last show of the week, and you pumped it full of stuff. So yesterday we didn't tell the story about more Palestinians killed at aid sites.
Yeah, well, that one goes back a couple of days. Yeah, so this is continuing to happen. Palestinians who are trying to get the food are being shot down 20 or 30 at a time, it seems. The whole thing, Israel and the United States have have said, well, the one way in which we can stop Hamas from gaining any of the food that comes in is to have our own outlets, American sponsored Gaza humanitarian zones or whatever. But the
Yeah,
problem is when the people, of course, they're very hungry and they're
yeah,
trying to get access this food, and so they get excited, they get a little bit, they start run towards it, and the IDF is trigger happy, and so they shoot people.
yeah,
They've been shooting innocent people all along, just to sort of control the crowds. But uh, this was supposed to be a humanitarian zone, and there happened to be ending up killing zones.
yeah,
So now a lot of the focus is off of Gaza because of the Iran conflict right now, and that's not really working very well. Um, and and so I brought it up for that reason that this continues to happen, and
yeah,
it's getting more, like I always say every show, remember Gaza, but it's getting harder and harder to remember because the news is getting it's just another slaughter of citizens
yeah,
in Gaza, just one more. It's just that it's becoming hard to keep track of. It's
yeah,
like it's a fact of life, like it's raining, you know.
yeah,
Well, yeah, if you have five hurricanes, the first one gets noticed, and then after a while, oh, it's just another hurricane. Well,
yeah,
it's just a massive atrocity happening in Gaza, another massive amount of innocent people getting shot down as they're trying to access food. And we only have the IDF's or reports on this saying, oh, well, these people got out of control, so they had to be shot, put back in there. But they don't say it like that. They say that,
Well,
um,
but again, here's the question: people get out of control. What do you do if the crowds get out of control in a demonstration situation? You might shoot bullets in the air, warning shots, right?
yeah.
That's what you do with people out of control. You shoot warning shots.
Yeah, you make it so that there are clear places to move and instruct the people ahead of time how
Yeah,
to access these places. But you get a lot of people that are desperate for food, and they're not gonna, they're gonna try to get to it before it's all gone,
yeah.
and it's making them run around
Well,
like
desperate
animals
people
trying to
do.
find a
Yeah,
dish of food.
yeah. Desperate people do desperate things, right?
Yeah,
You know.
and these are supposed to be aid sites. They're supposed to be
Yeah,
humanitarian sites.
yeah.
What's going on? And
It's
it's
not very
happening every day.
humanitarian. Yeah,
You know, oh, you can only get your food here. Here's a place where you get food, and you got to be in this line or that line. Well, you tell people the food's over there, they start going for it. Well, you're not lying, so we'll shoot you dead.
yeah. And what's here is
There might be a Hamas guy in there, so let's shoot all that, especially those little ones. The little ones over there, I'm sure they're Hamas operatives. So let's cut down those children too.
well,
I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but
I know you are. Well, actually, here was a question for you. It's very much related to this. If you're talking about statistics, 1 in 2 people, right, or 1 in 10 people, which is the lesser? 1 in 2 or 1 in 10?
in what regards, though? What
Oh
is the
no, as a fraction, 1 in 2 or 1 in 10, which is the lesser?
What, 1 in 10?
Yeah, of course. Do you know what I had somebody say on a Facebook comment the other day? Israel is currently killing 1 in 2 people, which is way less than one in the 1 in 10 that normally happens in these types of situations.
That's a dumb comment.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody who doesn't know maths.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they were talking about innocent casualties.
Well, for one thing, the average person is judging whether or not it is moral to kill 1 in 2 or 1 in 10. What are you talking about?
It's
That's
moral to kill
acceptable. Those
nobody.
are acceptable casualties. 1
Yeah.
in 10 or 1 in 10 is not acceptable casualty.
No, 1 in
1 in
10 is
2.
not an acceptable casualty for innocence. No, absolutely not. Yeah. 0 is acceptable casualty limits. Even with combatants, you actually want to, you'd be better off capturing these people, your enemy combatants, enemy leaders, than killing them.
Yeah.
But
these are innocents. Like, so they come up with this. Well, when the Americans were in Fallujah, there was a 2-to-1 count, like 2 civilians for every insurgent. They said, well, those are acceptable casualties.
No, so they're not.
No, they're not. Seriously.
Yeah.
For one thing, what were they doing in Fallujah in the first place? And we can draw parallels to what happened in Iraq and what is now happening in Iran.
Yeah.
They made all these excuses to invade Iraq. Probably upwards to 1 million people died as a consequence of it in the long run. And they went and they attacked places like Fallujah, trying to fight Sunni insurgents and Shia insurgents. And the number one thing was, get out of our country. Don't mess, what are you doing here? And what kind of effect does it have? Well, it destabilized the country, which is still destabilized today. And what did they find? No weapons of mass destruction at all. Yeah. Well, they're trying the same game now with Iran. Now, Iran does have centrifuges and it does have ability to make uranium to a point where they can make a bomb if they wanted to. But that was all held back by Obama's deal with Iran that Trump pulled out of, and now they can play the weapons of mass destruction game all over again. Yeah. If they kept Obama's peace registration of how can I put it? Obama's plan to make sure that no fissile material could be made in Iran, everything would be fine right now because everybody would be secure. But Trump pulled out of that and then started threatening Iran. So what do you think they're going to do? Well, maybe the best thing to do is to get a bomb, but they don't. They're still about a year or so away, according to their own intelligence, and yet they're saying, well, it's like days away, so that's why we got to bomb the crap out of them.
Yeah. And okay, so when you compare the fact that Israel has a declared population of 9.7 million. I punched up a question, how many Palestinians are there? And it says 1.2 million. All right. So I'm pretty sure that 9.7 million statistic does not include any Palestinians. So in fact, the population of Israel is 11 million.
Right? No, the population includes the Palestinian faction. There are about a million. Anyway, yeah, it does.
Population about whether it's 10 or 11 million. It's basically about the same size as Sweden, about the same size as Belgium, but yet it yields proportionally much more power weapon-wise than those two countries do, and other places like Benin are about the same population.
Well, Israel's a very rich country, and of course,
Yes.
because it
Oh,
has
yeah.
enormous amounts of money being put into it by the United States. It was Obama that stopped the economic aid. They were getting $3 billion worth of economic aid as well as $3 billion worth of military aid during peacetime. So Obama says, well, you have to be your own self-sustaining country. You have the wherewithal to sustain yourself. So we'll drop the $3 billion aid you're getting, economic aid. You don't need that anymore. But they still get over $3 billion. And lately they're getting billions and billions and much more than that with their war with Hamas, Lebanon, and now with Iran. They have the best military equipment going because it all comes from the United States. They have inexhaustible amounts of weapons, of bombs, of missiles. They just knock on the door, the White House door, and say, we need hundreds of thousands of more bombs. Hand them over, and they duly do that.
Oh yeah, I know. All right, gonna move on from there. Eastern premiers are looking to U.S. governors as allies in the Trump trade war.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. The New England and Eastern Canada do a brisk trade. They do, among other things, tourism. A lot of Quebec people like to go to Maine, New England for to their resorts. They have the back and forth between Eastern Canada and New England is brisk. They have a good trade agreement between them, but that now is all being put at risk.
And one of the factors there, if somebody from Toronto were probably going to New Brunswick, they would often go through Niagara Falls and through the US to enter New Brunswick that way because the roads are much quicker through the US.
Yeah, they may be. I went that way myself the last time I went down east. But that's because I could stop halfway or partway
on your friend
at my buddy's place and hang out for a day and rest and gas up and go the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So and believe me, when you're down in New England, you feel pretty much at home being a Canadian. Well, a Canadian that was born in Canada, basically. It's a good fit, New England and Canada. We got the similar ideas and similar culture, and it so the New England lifestyle and it's beautiful too. A lot of it, the countryside, the rolling hills of Vermont, New Hampshire. It's a really interesting drive. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice to go down through there. And seriously, this trade thing with tourists from Canada not going to the United States, that's a problem for our neighbors. So what basically they're doing is they're showing that there's a disconnect in the United States, basically, between those people who want good and fair trade between the two countries and people like Trump who want to eschew that to a heavily dominated U.S. Trade surplus, basically. And so they're going to, that this is one of the consequences of Trump's tariff and all his changing of his mind every 2 seconds. It didn't work against China. He had to phone them and say, "Oh, we need some rare earths. Can we make a deal?" Guess what? I'll drop 100% of my 100 of the 140 or 90 or something of the tariffs on your stuff, which China says, "Oh, that's acceptable because we can make it. You still have to buy it at 55%. You won't have any alternative." So I don't know. it's just one of those consequences when real people, the average everyday person. I heard from somebody yesterday when they went down to Florida, they were being hugged. As soon as they saw the Ontario plates, people would come up to them and say, "Oh, thanks for coming. We disagree with all this BS going on. Thanks for coming, and we apologize for what our president is doing." That kind of thing. So I've heard that in a number of places, like on the news.
Well, there's actually
this was an actual person who had witnessed it. So
yeah, well, it was a California town that's that's got flags out saying "Welcome Canadians," right?
That's was it
Palm Springs, I think.
Palm City or something? Yeah,
Palm Springs, I think.
Palm Springs, yeah.
And again, because in fact, that's the one good thing about places like Vermont, places like New Hampshire. There's so much cross-border stuff,
and they should be so grateful for us because we let them win the Stanley Cup.
But nobody.
That was our olive branch. The United States. Okay, you can win the Stanley Cup.
Nobody in Florida even understands the game.
Yes, they do because of all the Canadians are down there.
Well,
who's down there? Who's down in Florida? There are huge amounts of people that have moved there from Ontario or the northeastern United States or northern United States. So you get people that moved to Florida after retirement from Chicago and Boston and New York. They're all hockey lovers. And then you add to that all the people from Canada go down there. Oh, yeah, they have no problem filling the rink and knowing how the game is played.
Anyway, yeah. I'm just being cynical about them, but anyway. All right. Okay, so but the point being is that Doug Ford and the premiers are right. There's and the governors have actually got probably more in touch with the people than is the president, even Republican ones.
Yeah, and we find that even in New England, the Vermont governor is conservative. He's a Republican.
Yeah,
and he is not too happy with Trump's trade policies that have caused all this dissent, border dissent, and divided us. Like we go down there, they come up here. It's almost like an open border.
Yeah.
And if you go back farther, if you go back to before 9/11, it was practically an open border. And I tell the story here that once I went to the border to drive across, and I had been traveling and I still had my passport on me. So when the border guard asked me for ID, I just dug in my pocket and gave him my passport. He didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
He kind of looked at it and didn't know quite what to do with it. And he says, you don't happen to have a driver's license, do you? I don't know. He told me he didn't know what to do with it. That's how easy it was. You got a driver's license.
Well, and there was a time where probably just people went over for shopping.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
They still do it. Yeah, they probably still do.
They still do, except for the Canadian dollar makes it hard for us.
Yeah.
The Canadian dollar. When the Canadian dollar's within 20 cents of the US dollar, it's okay. But when we're only worth 70 cents, it's tough.
Look, I go over there to watch lacrosse games. This year, after the tariff things, I've gone over there. I was there for a hockey game. I'm over there for several lacrosse games. I was there for the Buffalo Bandits when they won for the third time the national championship in the arena there. Over 19,000 people. It was packed. It wasn't a seat to be had. during that lacrosse game, and it was made up half of Canadians at least. So half of them Canadians and half of them Americans. And, I had no problem going back and forth. The customs guard gave me no problem at all. So all that stink, like the media over here is dumb. Oh, you're going to have to, they're going to take your phone. They're going to look in it. They're going to do all these things. Those are rare, very rare. And they would have a reason, whether they're right or wrong for that. But the average person going over and back again, they're not going to have any trouble at all. And that whole business about them being pulled in and searched, and even Christian Amanpour, who is a journalist from Britain, she was worried about that. She had to make a trip to the United States, so she got a burner phone and all this other preparation. And when she got here, it was just like rubber stamp your way in, and she was made afraid for no reason.
Yeah.
So even though the right wing press is not worthy of believing, so is the left wing press too.
But again, when it comes down to traveling to countries, let's be blunt about it. There isn't a country in the world that doesn't have the right to take your cell phones, take your computers, and dig into them. There's a difference between having the right to, which every border in the world has its own rights that way, and actually doing so. Right? 9 times out of 10, they don't have the time. They don't have the time to go looking at your thing.
No, it obviously, no, like, I don't know, all this pressure that's being put on is being over reported, and it's hyperbole, and that's the problem with our press these days. Yeah, it's either right or left, and they have an agenda, and so they're going to pick and choose which fact they want to tell you.
Well, there was a thing came out of the Law Society this week about this particular topic.
Keep talking. I'm going to unplug my.
Basically, what the Law Society said was, if you got to go to the USA, make sure that you don't have any locally stored stuff on your computer. Put it all on the cloud, and make sure that you actually turn off Wi-Fi before you shut your computer down, and pack it in your bag before going to the USA. Okay, that was not good. We still have power. We're still seemingly talking, but I just lost power on a portion of it, so I don't know whether I'm actually live or not. Yep, so I'm still live. Anyway, so what the Law Society was, it was protect your data. Tell them you're a lawyer. Tell them you're going for a particular case, and that you are, that you've got client material on there. Well, you can do all of those things, but they're most likely not going to look. So I thought that was, and advice like that has been told to me by hundreds, not hundreds, by dozens of firms. I've heard the same thing from dozens of firms over the years. Doesn't matter whether they're Canadian firms.
So this isn't. So this you're saying over the years. In other words, you would have done it before all this happened.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it was precautionary moves you would normally have done anyway. If you were a lawyer,
you should do anyway.
What if you're an average person?
Yeah.
Do you recommend that? Do you recommend putting all your stuff on a cloud, taking your phone and getting a burner?
No, I don't agree with the burner phone stuff at all. Turn put it all on the cloud. Turn your cloud off.
Yeah, well, they can get into that too if they wanted to. But look, the idea that everything's getting ridiculous.
Yeah,
this idea of crossing the border and being looked at like there's Nazis there.
They're not interested in 99.99% of all people. they're interested in criminals, or the people that look criminal. Now,
I have a non-criminal face, obviously, because they let me over there anytime I want to go.
Well, I bet you have a Nexus card as well, don't you?
Yeah, but I tell you what, I have had less problems getting over the border since this has happened.
Yeah,
the border guards are very, very nicer and more accommodating. If you're going over for a game, they don't bother you. They used to give you some. If you get the odd one that would give you the razzmatazz, where you're going, what's the game, what time is it, this kind of thing. If you just tell them you're going over to see the lacrosse game, say, okay, go.
Well, here's another one though. Remember, Dave, you're a WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Yeah, but the other parts, I'm only about 1/4 Anglo-Saxon. I am a Protestant though, and I have other mixes, but they're all European mixes.
But you are white.
Yeah, yeah, really white. I burn in the sun.
We know, because we go out there with a magnifying glass and make sure it happens.
Yeah, I feel like that sometimes. Yeah. Oh, it was deadly yesterday. I had that, like, I don't know. I went for a long walk yesterday. So what I do is I drop my car off at the auto at the shop that I go to, and then I walk back. It takes about 40-45 minutes to walk back. And normally it's okay, but the sun was, oh God, the sun this time of year. Of course, we're almost right on the solstice.
Yeah,
we will be in a few days. So it's like solstice,
the weekend
sun. Yeah. If there was no clouds or anything, it burns. The ground was warm. When I walked on the ground, when I got off the sidewalk and walked off onto the ground, going through a park, there was heat radiating off of the ground. But in the shade, it was fine. But in the sun, it was deadly. Anyway, we can't blame Trump for that.
Why not? That's fun. That's fun to do that. Blame politicians for everything like that.
I make the greatest sun ever. The sun has never been as hot as it has been since I was the president.
Yeah, and then the climate change people, you could miss the point, Mr. President. We don't want hot sun. We want cold sun.
I think that climate change is a little bit beyond Trump. He doesn't quite get it.
All right, moving on. There's a 1.8 million irrigation project underway in Niagara on the Lake to protect specialty crops like grapes, tender fruit, and impacts climate change and drought. From the impacts of climate change and drought, is what they're saying. The project, known as Niagara Irrigation Initiative, will see upgrades to existing irrigation systems in Niagara on the Lake and develop a new pipe system in Lincoln and West St. Catharines.
Yeah, it's very, very positive.
It doesn't sound like a lot of money. 1.8 million is actually quite low for. Is it coming out the public belt or, public pocket?
Probably, if I can get the article back up. I haven't read it for a while.
Yeah,
I placed it in our lineup a while ago. So this sounds like this is the 1.8 million that they're doing now is an extension of what they've already done. So the irrigation plan has been around for a while. Yeah. What it is an ongoing thing to make sure that the farmers have adequate amount of water. I mean, there's nothing they can do if there's too much water. That sometimes happens, but lately there has been less water than required, than they need. Just the cycles of weather. Sometimes you get drought years. Sometimes you get years of too much water. It's just the way it is. What they want to do is ensure that the farmers have adequate supply of water for their crops. Now, this is a very agricultural area because the soils around here are very good. So this was very encouraging to me when I read it, because this will help the agribusiness in and around this area, which amounts to $1.4 billion of the Niagara's economy. So when you're talking about improved irrigation systems that will ensure better crops, then that is a good thing. And the fact that it is an ongoing thing, and this particular part of it's $1.8 million, so it doesn't sound a whole lot, but if you add it to the other irrigation projects on prior to it,
hey, if I'm going to ask you for $1.8 million, you're going to say, help, I can't give you $1.8 million. But out of a public purse, that's actually quite a small project.
I think it's a private public combo,
it's
but
a private public combo. Yeah, it's federal, provincial, and local organizations doing this.
Yeah, I finally got the article up here.
Yeah.
So it's a private public. So I don't mind any tax dollars going to something like this because the return will come back.
Yeah.
If you make your economy healthier and stronger using public funds, that means they're going to employ people. That means they're going to sell things. That means they're going to produce. If they're producing X amount of wine from their vineyards and X amount of tender fruit, they'll move that will increase. And if the production increases, that means it's good for our economy.
Yeah.
Because that comes right back into the community somehow. Goes in for wages and whatever else. Plus, some people might not think so, but it's a good idea to. We don't have illegals working on our farms. We have legals working on our farms. Temporary workers coming up and working on their farms. This helps the economies of other nations, particularly the islands in Central America, because we bring up the workers, we pay them, they help produce our profits. We pay them, they go back to the islands or their other homes in Central America, and it improves their lives. Yeah. So you can only see this as a very positive thing, and that's why I put it here. With all the negativity out there, I was looking for something positive, and this is pretty positive.
Well, when you think about this, what they're talking about is the specifics include upgrades to the existing Niagara Lake irrigation systems, and so they're trying to improve that system, and development of a new piped irrigation system in Lincoln and West St. Catharines. They don't mention where the water is piped from, but that's fine.
David Hipple, the project steering committee chair, said new and improved irrigation is about more than efficiency. It protects livelihoods, supports food security, and ensures future generations continue to farm. All positives, big time positives.
Oh, yeah.
And the one I mentioned too, as an aside, well, you're going to bring up a lot more temporary workers. They're not illegals. They come up, they work, and they go back home. And because we get cheap labor, that it helps us, our economy here, but it also helps the developing countries where these people go back to with the money they've made here.
Yeah.
So you can only see it as a very, very positive outcome. And that's, so when they talk about now they get a report, and which includes preliminary work on pipe network, pipe sizes, and source water options, et cetera, et cetera. So it's being very, very, very well planned. And it says the Canadian and Ontario government's food and agribusiness, Canada Infrastructure Bank, and the Greenbelt Foundation are providing the announced assistance. So I wanted a positive article, something that was positive, not just not just it's a sunny day today kind of report, but this is an economic report where private and public money are going together and planning a future for our agribusiness and making sure it's more secure. Yeah. So I just thought it was good, positive.
Yeah, and absolutely the fact that we're putting something into local infrastructure. This is an infrastructure type project, and that's good.
Yeah.
Right.
And because of the spin-offs that it will ensure, and let's face it, Niagara still has a very, very vibrant agribusiness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that provides a lot of money for this area.
Yeah. Okay. So there are 6 tips that are being provided by physicians to find a family doctor in Ontario. So, have you got this?
Yes, I got the one. Yeah, family
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah. Can you give us the lead in on this one?
All right, let me get to it right here. It is here. Yeah, so we have a problem. Although we have a problem because we don't have enough family doctors for the citizens of Ontario.
Yeah.
25% of the people of Ontario do not have a family physician. And
that's
yet,
pretty high. That's damn high.
yes. And it actually says so right here in the article. By the end of this year, 2025, 25% of all Ontarians won't have access to a regular family doctor.
Yeah.
Right. And yet, Ontario is supposed to be one of the better provinces.
Yeah.
So you see the doctor shortages all over Canada.
Yeah.
So, and one of the factors behind the shortages are numerous, and from crushing administrative burden that can see doctors spend 19 hours a week on paperwork alone to stagnate compensation that has fallen well behind. Now, this is what John Ringelbing had brought up. He has brought up the idea that some municipalities are considering or already have done, where the municipality or the region builds and supplies all the infrastructure that a doctor needs. So the doctor only has to do the doctoring.
Yeah.
So every new doctor has to establish himself. So he's going to have to buy computers. He's going to have to get staff and train staff and worry about staff turnover.
Oh, from a new doctor perspective, yes, you need all of that stuff. If you can, that's why many new doctors move into pre-existing clinics before they get their practice well established.
Yeah, or some in the old days they used to buy a practice after of an established doctor.
One that
so
was
that's how my doctor. That's how my doctor got. That's how my doctor got. How I got my doctor currently, because back in the 70s or something, Dr. Powell sold his practice to my doctor.
Yeah,
and that's the way they used to do it back then. But nowadays, a lot of this is can be avoided, and the 19 hours of paperwork and stuff like that can be taken over by established clinics where doctors can go in. So this is one of the reasons why we don't have so many new doctors. That was one of the reasons. There are other factors as well, but that was a big one. And so that idea that John Ringelbing brought up is really promising. And I hope to go ahead with that, because that will relieve the doctors of a lot of
well, my doctor
away from being just a doctor.
Yeah, my doctor has got her own clinic. I don't know whether she actually has a second doctor, but she has room for a second doctor in there. She has her husband's a pharmacist, which is often the case. I found out with many doctors that their significant other is often a pharmacist, but she has been well established. When she first came in, she even there, I don't know whether she got. She was actually in Morrison, but she always had her own receptionist. But there are doctors in Morrison that do not.
I don't
know.
I often wonder. I often wonder if two gynecologists married. I wonder how they have sex, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of a joke. Like, I'll pull this one off. I heard this online. It was hilarious. It says a guy who was a male comedian goes up in front of everybody, says this one line. Says, my gynecologist says I'm a hypochondriac.
Okay, so the 6 tips given by physicians to help you search, right? Register with Healthcare Connect. This is an Ontario government program that helps match individuals with family doctors and nurse practitioners who are accepting new patients, right? So that's number 1. Use online directories, websites of colleges, physicians, and surgeons of Ontario for searchable databases to find doctors in your area. Ask for referrals, i.e., friends and family, people they know, they may actually have, you might be able to be referred into their practices. Sometimes helps, doesn't always. Check local hospitals and clinics. Join the community forums, local Facebook groups, neighborhood groups often share information about doctors that are accepting new patients. And consider private clinics. If you need urgent care, some private clinics may offer family doctor services, though they may charge fees.
Now I don't know how this is a review article, and it's of June 17th. And it's about a 5-minute read. So if any of our listeners out there have problem accessing a doctor or have friends or relatives that have difficulty, this might be a useful read for them. So it's a review article, and it's called "Need a Family Doctor? 6 tips from physicians for finding one in Ontario."
Yeah.
So this I would advise anybody to kind of start there. There is no guarantee that you're going to get a doctor this way, but this is a way of beginning your search to get a family doctor,
Yeah.
and at least begin to understand the process. And you don't want to be in line but being shut out because others ahead of you are accessing these resources. So anyway, I put it there for our listeners because they're we can't really go into it that well and school them on this show, but that article, if you read that article, it will help you. It may help you find a doctor.
Yeah. I've just added the 6 bullet points into a comment, by the way.
Good show. Have we had any comments this morning?
We have had comments. I've shown them up. Oh, what's going on here? Okay. Yeah, we only had the 1 comment this morning.
Mike, how you doing? I don't know where everybody else is.
Which is weird. Yeah. All right. So there you go.
Yes.
Where are we? Okay. Moving on. Doug Ford is basically saying people are not interested in the Greenbelt fiasco. It's a thing of the past. And he's more or less saying, hey, the police shouldn't be looking at this.
I don't know. I think the police should be looking at it. And because the police have stirred things up, they haven't actually gone after Doug yet. But we remember members of his cabinet had to retire or actually resign. And other lesser officials had to resign too. So Doug Ford really blew it. He promised everybody that he wasn't going to touch the Greenbelt, and then he went ahead and did it. He had threatened to do it the first time when he was going to be elected. The blowback for it, he made everybody a promise they ain't going to touch the Greenbelt. Then when he got in, I'm going to go after the Greenbelt, and then he had to apologize because it was so mismanaged, for one thing, and found out that Doug Ford's buddies owned lots of that land in the Greenbelt, and they had bought it after Doug Ford got elected. It didn't look good at all. His popularity went for a tank. I mean, it went submarined his popularity. So he had to go back and he had to apologize, and he had to say, I apologize for making a promise and then breaking that promise, but I made it well again. And the investigation continues, and that's irritating him.
Well, yeah, but again, this, okay, so and actually, when I see Mr. Ford being irritated, you know what it reminds me? I saw some film clips of this yesterday, And I was looking at, do you know what, who he reminded me of? Also an irritated politician, also about a police investigation, was his brother. You know,
Which brother?
Doug Ford's brother.
The one that still exists? I didn't
No,
know he had another brother.
the one that died
Oh, shoot.
years ago when there was an investigation into Rob Ford. Um, kind of the facial expressions, the way he dealt with things, the way his mannerism, etc., was identical to Rob Ford in terms of being angered at the police continuing to look at this.
Yeah. Well, Rob Ford is a tragic, tragic story.
It is.
And Doug Ford has often talked about what really works with addicted people and so on. And he says he's had it in his own family. That's why he knows. We know that too because of Rob Ford's could have been a really excellent politician, but
no doubt he had some great ideas.
Yeah, and there's a new documentary there about about Rob Ford. I haven't seen it,
I did. I actually saw it. I saw it last night. That was very personal about Rob Ford, but it was because
were they kind? Like were they kind? Did they?
Actually, they had a fairly balanced thing. That they were talking to a lot of people who were working for Ford Nation.
Okay, but I mean, when they addressed Doug Ford or Rob Ford, were they kind? Obviously, the guy had addiction problems and other things going on. He also was very sick, and they didn't even know it for a long time, which could have been a factor in the way he behaved.
It could have been, yeah, it could have been.
But as long as they were kind to Rob, like I mean, they could have really made fun of him and all that. They didn't make fun of him or anything, did they?
No, they did not. It was a fair documentary. In fact, I would say it interviewed a lot of people who worked for him, including some members of the security detail. It was interesting.
Now here's I'll get back to the article here about the green belt and why Doug Ford says, well, it doesn't even come up when they survey people for their opinions and stuff about the government. The green belt doesn't come up. Well, now it's ancient history, so to speak. People have amnesia for sure, but it doesn't change the fact that he maintained the properties were needed in order to build new houses to offset the shortage in the province. And then a joint Star and Narwhal investigation that year found that 8 of the 15 parcels slated for construction had been purchased after the Tories were elected in 2018, while the land was still protected from development. So obviously somebody knew the inside information. Dougie's going to open up this land, so let's go and buy it.
Yeah.
In the separate 2023 reports, the Auditor General and the Integrity Commission each concluded that the property owners with ties to Ford's PCs had been favored in the rezoning process. And 1 month later, in his public opinion poll numbers plummeting, 2 cabinet ministers and 2 top aides forced to resign, a somber and contrite premier canceled the land swap. So, and he says, I'm very, very sorry. I made a promise to you that I wouldn't touch the green belt. I broke that promise. As the first step of earning back your trust, I'll be reversing the changes. We moved and so on. So Doug is not above breaking promises, obviously.
Yeah.
He's a typical politician.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's typical Doug Ford because he tries things. He has an idea, and he has an idea, and we all have ideas. Anybody who's been involved in politics usually gets involved in politics because they have an idea. Wouldn't it be better if we did whatever, right? So he has an idea, and great for him that he has ideas. He's got ways that he believes that can resolve some of the issues. So he puts this idea into practice, and when it proves impractical, he's actually one of the first people. He's good at saying, "Well, that didn't work. Let's try something else." That's what I
Well,
like.
here his ministry blundered. He blundered because, let's just say for just to be kind to him, that he didn't know that his buddies were buying this land.
Yeah.
Let's just say that he was aware of it. Well, he should have been aware of it.
He should have been, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument that he might not have been very much aware, because it wouldn't take much to reveal that, which it didn't, to the Auditor General and two major media outlets finds out really quick that Doug's friends were buying up this property. Well, that was just a dumb move. So I can't think Doug was that dumb, but so I give him a bit of a break on that. But he did break his promise, and which was revealing. So we have to watch him everywhere he goes. Whatever promise he makes, we got to keep an eye on him. And but in the meantime,
well, yeah, but that's the same for every. We got to keep an eye on every politician.
Not if I was the prime minister.
Oh yeah, especially if you were the prime minister. I know the sorts of things you would do.
Well, I wouldn't last long. I wouldn't want to be the prime minister very long. Just long enough to make a whole lot of money from the taxpayer and establish myself in Bermuda
and get your pension.
Yeah, well, I won't need the pension because I will have robbed enough money. I won't need one.
And you won't be coming back. Yeah. Okay. So.
Well, what's this prime minister's salary gone up 1,000%?
Okay, so Belleville remains under a state of emergency, and these Eastern Ontario cities had a spike in homeless population since last year's declaration of emergency, and they've got this major problem with homelessness right now.
Yeah, Belleville's a state of emergency because they have so many addicted and so many homeless people. It's interrupting the community incredibly. It reminds me of what Gary Wilkins told me about what he saw in Peterborough. And when I saw the films of some of the films videos they had of Belleville, it was analogous of what Gary had told me. Well, actually, it was almost like if I was to imagine what Gary told me, it would be a description of what I saw in Belleville. And he was talking about Peterborough. So we're talking about all these tragedies around the world, in Gaza and Ukraine, and the new tragedy that's going to happen with the Iran war. There is lots of tragedies happening right here at home. And this addiction thing is growing boundlessly.
Yeah.
And it is it is our due diligence. And how do you stop it? The only thing I can see is stopping it is going after the drug dealers, going after the drug manufacturing. It's fentanyl and the zombie drug. Those are the things that are kicking these people out. They add so much tranquilizer to the fentanyl now. It's very hard. A little place like Belleville had 4 people die in 40 days.
Yeah.
And it's not the biggest of cities.
It's about the same size as Niagara Falls, isn't it? I believe.
I don't even think it's that big.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I've been through it. I've been through it once. I got the impression it was about the same size as Niagara Falls.
I'll find out.
A few years ago, I went there. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Let's see, 55,000 people. So
okay,
about half the size
of Welland. Yeah, about the size of Welland. Yeah.
Yeah, half the size of Niagara Falls, roughly.
Yeah.
So it's not a big town.
Yeah.
And they've had 4 four drug overdose deaths. They have lots more. They have homeless people cluttering up the street, nowhere to put them. They don't have enough shelters and everything else. This is a massive strain on any kind of a city. And it seems to be a needless one. It's a growing problem. It's almost like a disease. I would say it is a disease. It's kind of a social blight of some kind. So you have more and more people hitting the poverty zone, more and more people becoming addicted, more and more people succumbing to mental illness. These people are unproductive in our society. And how do we stop that? And how do we bring them back into society, make them productive, get them a job, do something? It is a nearly impossible task. It seems like the mountain just keeps getting higher and higher. And as we try to climb that mountain, it just gets bigger and bigger. And it's ruining towns like Peterborough and Belleville. And we will see that coming here. The other day when I stopped by, it was on Barker Street. I had to go in to the seniors building there. There's people out in the back there that are living on the grass out there behind the building. I find people huddled under trees here and there everywhere in the city with their shopping carts and so on. What are we going to do? Yep. How are we going to fix it? Now, Belleville's looking at it has emergency, and it only has so many resources. It only has so many doctors that can apply to this. Talk about doctor shortages. It only has so many doctors that we can supply to it. It only has the means to build so many shelters. And then you have a lot of bad actors in those shelters. A lot of the places where people can only go during the day because they don't want them at night. So they'll help them during the day, but they won't help them during the night because things get out of hand.
Yeah.
So how do you stop it? Do you take the drug dealers and hang them in the middle?
And I think it's been getting bad on at times in Niagara Falls. It's been getting very bad at times in St. Catharines, right? We've been fortunate that we managed to get past, I think, some of the worst crises that we've had.
Now we talk about fentanyl and what a problem it is, and the problem is not fentanyl; it's the precursors to fentanyl.
Yeah.
When they talk about China sending all these precursors to fentanyl here, they're satisfying orders that they get. Now, the precursors to fentanyl that are put together to make fentanyl, unfortunately, are the same ones that used for legitimate drugs. Yeah. You have to have those precursors for other drugs. So what you do with the precursor is up to you. So you can see like China shipping precursors to Pfizer or whatever in the United States so that they can make drugs with them. The problem is where these precursors go outside of legitimate use. And it's very hard to attract. So you have we have the precursors coming into Canada. We have the precursors going into the United States. And of course, the most abundant amount of them, by far, 99% of them go into Mexico. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the precursors come into the United States, cross the border from the United States into Mexico. The fentanyl is made there and then comes back into the United States. So it makes it very hard to track. So you see the precursors come in and they're just precursors. They're just elements. And then they're shipped into Mexico. So Mexico doesn't just get their precursors from China. They get them from the United States.
Yeah.
And so the fentanyl labs, there will be fentanyl labs in the United States. There'll be plenty of them, but most of them will be in Mexico. Some of them are in Canada. The ones in Canada are mostly made for domestic consumption, but some of that fentanyl goes across the states. But the other fentanyl comes into Canada. At one point there was fentanyl coming into Canada on the east, going across the west, and then going back into the states. It's very hard to track, and I seriously don't know how we're going to stop this. It's going to take a really concerted effort. In the
And
meantime,
at the
it's
end of the
laying waste to our societies.
yeah, and at the end of the day, this article was written about Belleville, but it could be Welland. You could be writing an article about Welland at some point, right? Or Niagara.
Welland, it could be Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
St. Catharines has got its own problems.
Yeah, exactly. And each of them have exactly the same problems as being raised in this article at different times.
Yeah, so when we look at the tragedies around the world, it does us good to behold those tragedies that it behoves us well to look at their own tragedies here in our own country. And this is one of the hugest ones that we have. Is that's the drug addicted problem and the waste of our citizens, the waste of our fellow citizens and what's happening to them, the wasted lives.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. I got to get going anyway. Dave? Oh no. Dave? Wasted lives. We've got a problem with Dave right now. So I'm going to actually call it quits. We're at 8:02 anyway. So, thank everybody for being here. We'll see you next Monday. Oh, hi, Dave.
I'm back.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I don't know what happened there. It was kind of weird, but I've got to get going anyway. So we've kind of come to the end of the show anyway on that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, have a great weekend. We'll have a great rest of the week and a weekend. Whatever you're doing, Peter, in the next 2 days, whatever you're doing is worth not going for talking Niagara in the morning.
Yeah, hard work. All right.
Yeah, hard work. Yeah. Well, anyway, have a great and the weekend will be our solstice, won't it?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Summer solstice.
Yeah.
And as always, I will remind everybody: do not forget Gaza. That's a tragedy that continues to happen, and it has to end. It really does has to end. I mean, there are 55,000 people killed. People are being killed every day now. I mean, these are unarmed civilians that just happen to get out of line and they get shot.
Yes.
And because of the trigger happy IDF and in this business with Iran, there's going to be lots and lots of people killed.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Absolutely. All right.
Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.